What's up everyone, I'm Melissa Makak from Room 51 and this is Teach the Teach, where I teach you how to teach a board game, and in this video I'll be covering Keyforge. Now this is a how to teach video, meaning I'm assuming you already know how to play this game and now you're looking to teach it to others. There are plenty of ways to teach games. This is just a way that has worked for me, and if you have any sort of difficulty teaching games, maybe it could help you out. Now, this is a collectible card game, essentially, and I'm going to assume that you're teaching this to someone who has never played a CCG before. They're not familiar with them. If you are playing with somebody who is familiar with CCGs, then you could probably skip over some of the things I cover in this video. As such, what I like to do is I try to get people playing as quickly as possible. That's always what I'm trying to do. So I always start off with the story behind the game, letting them know a little bit about what's going on, why we're doing the things we're doing. Then I go into the objective of the game, right? Forging these 3 keys. And then I let them know how the game ends, which pretty much is first person to forge the 3 keys wins the game. Then I have set aside, usually when I'm playing the game, I've set aside the 4 types of cards that players will come across, right? So you got your creature, an upgrade, artifact, action card, okay? And I start with that and I couple together the creature and the artifact card because they come in the same way, just letting them know that they come in exhausted. Now for new players, who are new to CCGs, they might not know what that means. So you just want to explain to them that whenever a card is exhausted, that means that the card is placed sideways, and sideways means that you can't use the card on the field. Plain and simple. Then you go into action and upgrade. I couple those together, letting them know that these don't come in tapped or anything like that, or exhausted rather, and just letting them know the upgrade attaches to a creature usually, and you could just say that that means you will pair it up with the creature, possibly something like that, and this will give this some sort of boost. And it says exactly what it does on the card. And then I let them know with the action cards that it will usually have the word play there. That pretty much means that this ability will go off when you've played the card. So now they know the 4 types of cards that they'll come across. At this point, I show them that some of the cards will have this little amber symbol on there. And I'll just say that whenever you play any sort of card that has this symbol, you're going to gain that much amber. However many amber is listed there. Cool. Then I have another 4 cards that are set aside. You don't want to go into every single keyword that they'll possibly come across in this game because there's a lot and they're most likely not going to remember all of them. So what I usually do is I have the rulebook set aside, or it's a really quick Google search on their phone or whatever to discover whatever sort of keyword they're coming across, what that might mean. But anyway, there are a few keywords that I think are important for the game for them to know right off the bat. So one of them being reap. This is a really substantial ability for the game, right? Because it's all about gaining amber. And so you just let them know that for reap, any creature can be reaped, meaning you let them know that that means you'll just exhaust them. But some of them have a reap ability, saying that when you do reap this card, you'll gain that ability. Cool. Then I go into something like maybe we've already discussed the play ability over here, but some of them say action, which means that you have to exhaust the card, and at this point they know what exhausting means, and then you can perform that special ability. I then go into fight, which pretty much you're letting them know that when you fight with a creature, and you'll let them know that you'll explain how fighting works a little bit later, but when you fight with a creature, that ability goes off. And then you can let them know about other cards that allow them to archive things. So for example, this one, the Sloppy Lab, works as play, archive a card, discard a card. And that's when you explain what archiving means. You just let them know at this point, you're not going to tell them everything about archiving, but you're just going to let them know that at this point, you're going to pretty much take a card from your hand and set it off into your archive pile. You're not going to exactly tell them what archiving means just yet. So there's that. At that point, you could then go into how fighting actually works in this game. And you could point their attention to these little red numbers, and just let them know that this is both their power and their health. And for their power, you're saying when you use this creature, when you exhaust it to fight with it, and letting them know pretty much whatever you're ever going to do with any of your creatures or artifacts, whatever it might be, you have to usually exhaust it unless the card says otherwise. So you just say, so this is at the point where you will explain how fighting works. You might say something along the lines of, so if this has 3 power, that means, and you get to decide what you're going to attack on my side of the board. And you just say that that's how much damage it's going to deal. However, that's how much damage it can also take, right? And letting them know that when you go to fight, you're also taking damage back. Again, unless the card says otherwise. At this point, you probably want to let them know that all the rules you're telling, these are the standard rules, but the cards supersede all rules, right? They might let you break some of the rules, things like that. At this point, you could go into the phases of the game, letting them know the very first thing you're going to do on your turn is see, do you have the 6 amber? In order to forge the key, you also want to stress that you can only forge 1 key during that phase. Then you could say, all right, and now you could go ahead and pick a house, and letting them know that that is how you actually play cards in this game. You're going to pick one of the houses that you own, and you'll pick that out, and then you just let them know that that's the house that you could play, letting them know pretty much the few things that you could do. You could play the card, you could discard the card, use those cards' abilities by exhausting them, tapping them, whatever it might be. And then you can let them know that eventually you will build back up your hand, right? You're going to draw back to your hand size, which is also maybe why you might want to get rid of some cards that you really don't want right now, so on and so forth. That is also when you explain the archive, how that works in terms of like when you get to draw those cards into your hand, how you get to draw all of them at once. And at this point, there's only like 3 different cards that are also set out on the board. One of them being the chain tracker. And you could let them know a little bit about the chain tracker and how that works and how some cards will build up chain. And eventually that would mean that you're going to be able to draw up less cards. So not all that many cards maybe use this. None that I've come across have any decks that use it heavily, but maybe they have one that does, and so this might be really important for them. But even it might come up later on in the game, and definitely there's going to be probably a lot of questions and everything. The last 2 cards are the stun and the power card. And you don't quite have to explain that. Some of the cards will let them do it, and then if they have a question about it, you could just show it to them or let them read it. You could explain it if you want, whatever it might be. 2 key words, though, that you do want to talk about as well. Capture and steal. And I find that it's helpful to talk about those 2 because this is where, these are a couple of keywords that people get confused a lot that I've noticed. And just explaining the difference between the 2, where capture means it'll be placed onto that creature that's capturing it or whatever it might be that's capturing it, whereas stealing means you actually take the amber and you give it to yourself. And then the last thing that you probably want to tell them is where they're able to place cards, right? So you can't just place them wherever you want in Keyforge. So you just want to explain that to them, and you will probably want to show examples saying like, I might play this card, and then I might have this card on the field, and then when I play my next card, it has to go either on the left or the right, and these are called your flanking creatures. And just letting them know that some cards will have to do with your cards being flanking and whatnot, and you'll see it on the cards. Anyway, that's pretty much it. They're pretty much good to go for Keyforge at this point. There might be some questions that arise, and that's okay. They might have to look up certain keywords based on what cards they have in their hands. That's all right too. Anyway, let me know if you have any questions down in the comments below. Tell me how you teach this game. I would love to know. Anyway, that's it for this episode. Thank you so much for watching. I'll catch you next time.